Welcome to the Bodacious Women in Cannabis podcast, the show where the bold and brilliant women cannabis business leaders share their journey and their expertise. Here's your host, Susan Burns.
Hi, this is your podcast host, Susan Burns. I'm also a lawyer in the cannabis industry. Nothing delights me more than showcasing bodacious women in cannabis. And today is no different. We are talking with Jane West, the curator of thoughtfully designed cannabis accessories. If you want beautiful and elegant form that follows function, you definitely want in on this episode. Welcome, Jane.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, it's a delight. I can't believe the products that you've created. So, and your website is beautiful. Tell me, Jane, how did you start on this journey and what led you to create such unique and beautiful things?
Well, I'm excited to be telling my story this year, especially. I've been kind of quiet and heads down working on things for the past couple of years. But this fall will mark the 10-year anniversary of creating the brand Jane West and creating my very first company in the cannabis space. And so it's been just a really thoughtful year, knowing that I'm about to hit this milestone. At that point in time, Colorado and Washington were the only two states that had legalized, and Colorado hadn't even opened up doors to dispensaries yet. So it was the fall of 2013, and I was out to dinner with a friend who did have a med card and had acquired some edibles and wanted me to try them with her. And I'm, everyone knows that I love cannabis and always would have it at my home and have bongs and other, items around my house. And so she knew she could ask me and I'd be down to try it. And I was blown away at the packaging, that it told you how many calories was in each one, and that I was really surprised at how modernized and it looked like I was excited to try this product. And so we did that edible. I had such an amazing night. I barely drank anything. And all night long I was like, okay, this is the future. This is about to be legal here in Colorado, and look, you can consume these products like this that make you feel so amazing and not drink alcohol. So I went back home and I had a full-time job. I have a master's degree in social work. I worked for a company doing experiential education for high achieving high school students, and loved my job. I had a 3 and 5 year old at home. But my kids had just kind of started full-time school. So I did have a little bit more time on my hands. And so I decided to start, it wasn't a company in my mind at the time. It was just edible events. And once a month in Denver, Colorado, we were going to host a cannabis-friendly event. And
what kind of event? Like a social event or speakers, or what kind of event were you thinking of initially?
Well, at the time, there really was nothing for cannabis consumers to attend. And I attended a few things I could kind of find, and they were not my aesthetic. They were not my audience. They were not my music. So basically, it was a Friday night event that was 2.5 hours long with live music in a local art gallery that doesn't have a liquor license, and that where I could host an event. And then I also had it catered. And so each event had a different theme to it. The first one was the end of Prohibition on January 24th. And so I started that journey of planning these events, and it was just the beginning of this incredible, fascinating maze that is the cannabis industry. I had to interview caterers who were I would never want my brand associated with cannabis, because if people start puking or something, they'll blame it on I just started to realize all the different feelings people have in my community around it, going into different art galleries and asking them about hosting this event there and hearing, their reactions to it is just really interesting. But I found an amazing guy, Michael Burnett at Space Gallery, and he had this huge outdoor area.
Oh, we had an event at Space Gallery.
Yes, it's lovely there. Yeah. And so I was his first Weed event. And so it was live music, food, entertainment. Each ticket was $125. It was just going to be for 100 to 150 people. And that's really what I did for a living. Like I produced events for both of Obama's inaugurations where we rented museums on the National Mall. So like a party at an art gallery that's catered wasn't like, that didn't seem too overwhelming for me. It was like, oh, this will be an amazing weed event. So we also had to rent a bus in order to follow all the state regulations. Buses are considered private property. And that's why these different 420 tours can flourish in different cities, being able to consume on a bus. So the bus was out front. I had insurance from Lloyd's of London. I had a security team, and I started selling tickets to the event. And it was called Edible Events. The very first event was packed. There was tons of media there, which was another really important decision I had to make because people didn't want to be filmed consuming cannabis. But one of the goals of what I was trying to do, changing the way people think about cannabis, was change the aesthetic going with it. Every article back then would have a dude, whatever you define a dude being, with like a giant bong and like a giant cloud of smoke, and that picture or a picture of a weed leaf would basically accompany every article. And like cannabis is for everyone. And so like I wanted to show people this other side of it, but how would I do that if I also like adhered to some of the guest requests to not have cameras? And so we went all in with cameras. I had it all over the information. Like if you don't want to be filmed, you shouldn't attend. And people came from Oklahoma. People came from other states. It was amazing. And a lot of news outlets came. And so CNBC, Al Jazeera, and different groups were there. Harry Smith wanted to interview me and came to my house but I wasn't sure if where all that footage would go or what would actually happen. And the event was a success. I went back to it was just a one Friday night party. And I had another one planned for February and one for March. And it was exciting. It was like this new thing I was going to do. And then footage of the event and my interview with Harry Smith, where I say, I think it's just important because he's like, why are you doing this? Why are you doing it? And I'm saying, like, I think it's just important to say I use marijuana and that's okay. And so that footage was utilized by Brian Williams on the 5:00 evening news, national news on February 26th about marijuana in Colorado, launching the first Marijuana in America special. And I got fired from my job the next day. And it was all like justified.
Oh my God.
I know. And so like, when people tell the story or when it gets written, sometimes it seems like this like badass thing I did. It was not. It was very bad. It was very bad. It was not what because I had also in the 4 months that I had like made this startup in cannabis, I had also decided this is really hard. Like this is there's not like sponsor dollars everywhere for this stuff, and there's not like, this is really hard to do. I'm just getting started.
It's a lot of work and there's a lot of nuance to navigate.
Yes. So, but that did continue my story. So already the name Jane West and what I was doing and Edible Events and all the things was being written about. And then they wrote about the party. And then when I got let go, that was written about. It was on the cover of the Denver Post, like local cannabis event planner, asked to leave corporate position. And because I hadn't been selling cannabis, the goal was just to have an event that, everyone could enjoy, what they brought on their own. And so that, really kept me in the news. And I tried to focus on the events as best I could. The city.
So wait a minute, Jean. So you didn't sell at the event. It was a BYO.
Yes.
BYOC.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Got it.
So, and that was clear too, and we did make some recommendations, which was the goal of Edible Events, was that like eventually the sponsor would just be a product that we recommend and customers can use a code to go buy. And then like before the event, you should probably it's all designed around this new like tropical edible with CBN or some fun thing. So education would be great. Like there's still so much limited education because of how much they limit our ability to communicate about the product. But so I went all in. I started, I turned the event series over in the summer into a fundraiser for the Colorado Symphony Orchestra, who was super progressive about it and really they had just gotten a ton of new audience with Beethoven and Bruce. And now they were open to cannabis. And so we turned the summer events at Space Gallery, where you've been, a beautiful location. The Colorado Symphony Orchestra played. That was covered on CBS This Morning, among other outlets, and it was lovely. They did such a great piece on it. And so things were going better, but also like it was really hard. There wasn't like, I couldn't host an event every week, whether I had the capacity to do so or the funding. It wasn't like, this wasn't an operating business model. And I also wasn't a business owner. Like I'd always been, like I have a master's in social work. I worked in international relations. I was never in a CEO position. And so we hosted the events, but we were getting a lot of attention from the mayor Michael Hancock, who does not like cannabis. And so 2 months later, after all the hoopla and the symphony stuff, he sent a SWAT team to my 420 brunch, Wake and Bacon. And it was on Easter Sunday, 4/20, 2014, and put an end to all the events. Like we still move forward.
On what? The lawyer in me wants to know.
On April 20th, 2014, there were like 5 bigger cannabis events occurring. Like the doors were opening to actually being able to do this. And no one really was cracking down. Like it was working. We were doing everything we could above board. Like I had security and insurance and the permits for the bus and everything. Like, but no one had told us we like couldn't do it. And since there were no regs written around social consumption and the mayor wanted to like basically like make an example out of us, like 3 of the events were shut down hard, like with a SWAT, like 8-person SWAT team at a bakery.
Wow.
And they took all that there wasn't anything they could actually hold me for legally. So instead it was all based on the fact that we had mimosas. And I didn't have a liquor license. But this is like a minor nuance, not something you would use a SWAT team for. Oh, like it's the same thing as when you get like a glass of wine at a nail salon or an art gallery. And so, yeah, so that was like, and then that was a pretty big news story because they were like, the mayor, that was in Slate and all these bigger outlets. Reason magazine did a great piece on it. Yeah. And so then I was in court like 6 different times. I eventually had to plead guilty because like they still had the bottle of champagne, like in really, like my lawyer's like, this is really weird that they still have this bottle of champagne back there.
I'd like to introduce
I know
our first piece of evidence.
Exactly. So
a bottle of stale champagne. And
yeah.
Look, it's very tasteful champagne, but nonetheless.
Exactly. So yeah, so that happened on April 20th. So I started my company in the fall of 2013. And on April 20th, 2014, that was when everything really started to get like shut down in terms of my ability to host any event, let alone a cannabis event. And so at that point, though, had been in the news a lot, like Denver Post cover on top of Al Jazeera, on top of 5 o'clock evening news with Brian Williams. And like the name Jane West was quite prominent. And a lot of women were reaching out to me about like, how do I get in the industry? I want to do what you do. Like, and I was like, I do not know what I'm doing. Like, I do not know. I am not.
And you don't want to do this?
Yeah. And this isn't working. And I don't grow weed and I don't, and I don't have a license and whatever. And so, but I do, I did run pretty large scale community building national programs for over a decade with my social work degree. And so I founded Women Grow. I started just pivoting in every interview I had. I just talked about how women need to enter the cannabis industry and now is the time. And I was also pretty naive about how quickly money and, wealthy entrepreneurs and VCs would like remove opportunity. But what I saw in 2014 in Colorado was nothing but opportunity. Like I know women that owned a dispensary, that owned an edibles company, that owned a lab, that owned a grow. Like there was so much opportunity available. And, thousands of people in Colorado have growers licenses. There's hundreds of dispensaries. Most of them are still independently owned. Like, I really believed that this was going to be a small business revolution nationwide that also like really did improve our communities, because a lot of the public health data coming out of Colorado, shows these different, positive effects of legalizing cannabis. And so I wanted the world to know. I was like, okay, let's do this. Like, I started the Women Grow chapter. I founded the company. I protected its IP. You'll appreciate. And Mary Shapiro helped us with that. And I just started holding monthly meetings in Denver as like the chapter chair. And then after I had done that for 4 months, I kind of had a model of how to show someone else to do it, because so many people were reaching out that I was like, okay, fine, just start your own chapters. Like, this is how you do it. This is how you set up the event. We managed an Eventbrite page, which gave us a lot of credibility at the time, because we wouldn't have had a way to get people's ticket. Like, we charged $25 to $40 to go to an event. And so I founded Women Grow. I immediately was like the national events director, and then found people around me to Jasmine is in the CEO position, and we've got founding members, and I worked solely on building Women Grow for 18 months. We did its first national event with women from all over the country, and Willie Nelson's wife, and then Melissa Etheridge came to the next one. We did events at the Opera House downtown, which was just really like, it's in the Performing Arts Center. So that was like a really full circle moment to like what we've tried to start doing, what we're actually doing here, and women came from all over the country, all over the world, from multiple other countries to attend those summits. And then by the summer of 2016, like, I knew I wanted to do other things. Certainly Women Grow was not like what I meant to, end up doing. There was so much desire for people to have these different leadership positions in cannabis as well. And I really wanted to make my own products. Like, I hadn't done it yet. I hadn't like sold cannabis yet or grown it yet or designed products yet. But I knew that I wanted to, and no one else was doing it the way I'm doing it now.
So what made you want to create your own products? Was it because there was something that you were looking for that you weren't exactly finding in terms of effect?
So,
just
primarily,
consumption.
My first motivation was to create physical products, like consumer product goods that were improved, because. Like, I think a bong is a houseware, an accessory. It's not paraphernalia. The word paraphernalia defines something that is illegal. And there's a lot of reasons that the products that we use, the pipes, the size of the bowls, the way it's designed, there's a lot of reasons behind their design that have to do with them being illegal and for use with what is considered illegal activities. However, if you have a modern outlook on cannabis and consider it something that is welcomed into your home, and you would offer guests and you would have people over and have it, be consumed, how would things look different if it's not being hidden under your bed when guests come over, and instead is something that is like part of your household and part of your life? And so like and that really started with the events, because I wanted a bong bar, and I couldn't even find, if I could find a bong that I really loved, it was handmade and so was not replicable. And also the handmade and hand blown nature to much of the glass that we use. It's beautiful, and a massive national community of glass blowers puts amazing designs out there, but they're not replicable. And they're also, you can't have that mechanization where every single slide and every single bowl is going to fit in perfectly. And there's a reason to design bowls a certain way. Like, my bowls are very triangular so that you have more green to consume versus more of a circular bowl. We're getting off on the design rail. But basically, I was trying to find 5 bongs for a bong bar, my first bong bar, that I wanted all on display. And I couldn't find 5, because I didn't want it to look like everyone. I didn't want it to be expected, but I couldn't find anything that was my aesthetic. And so I designed this first line. So this line, this is designed to also be shorter than a wine bottle, so it looks.
So how tall is that? Because we're I mean, you and I are recording with video, but we're going live with audio only. So for the listeners, it's beautiful. I'll just say it's beautiful.
It's only 11 inches tall, and is designed to be slightly shorter than a wine bottle, so that it like fits more seamlessly onto like a table scape. It's just like giant bong, and has a big, wide, heavy base so that it doesn't tip and whatnot. A lot of circular bongs tip a lot. So yeah.
Oh yes, I remember the bong juice days from college.
Yes, and so yeah, so I had a lot of ideas, and I needed to just start working into them of like, how can I do this? What products could I bring to market first, and why? And so so by the summer of 2016 was my last day at Women Grow. I hired a next generation of staff and went on to start designing my own products.
And the rest is history?
I guess so. Everything is so hard. Everything is so hard. Consumer product goods are hard, but I still absolutely believe in them and believe they are like the backbone of the brand I'm building. As cannabis expanded across the US and I saw how legalization was occurring, who had access to licenses, the limitations that were being put on products offered and why, it's been really honestly sad to watch, like the entrance of publicly traded companies into the space when the rest of us can't even get banking. The word MSO, like that was not a word in 2014.
Yeah. MSOs and marijuana when we started on that whole journey was not, those weren't two M's that went together.
Exactly. And like, I remember being like, that's never going to work. This isn't federally legal. They can't like have operations in all these states and get money from Canada and like, they can't have it. So, a lot of things have changed that really have drastically affected the landscape because so few people have actually the right to grow this plant.
Yeah, so it's tilted in favor of large businesses.
Yeah.
We just went through that in Minnesota, the 23rd state, to legalize as soon as the governor is going to sign the bill. He hasn't as of this recording, but the way that the legislation is drafted I'm still making my way through it, but it's sad.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate. I really hope I'm going to make because I have a new glassware line coming out. And
can you tell us a little about your new glassware?
Absolutely.
What's coming out?
Absolutely. So
wait, Jade, first, I don't think everybody knows about what your product line consists of. So why don't you tell us about that?
So I'm a flower lover. And so while I am starting to dip into concentrates and other products like that, and edibles, which we're introducing our edibles line next year, everything I've designed to date is really for flower and making the experience fit more seamlessly into your life, making it something that's cleaner and more manageable, and that you're really there's such amazing cannabis being grown out there, and the way you choose to consume it and the small little nuances of how you do it drastically affect the user experience. So, cannabis is bought in stores all over this country, and it's either a pre-roll or it's in a jar as flour. And so in a pre-roll, there's a lot of paper involved. It affects the taste, and it's also a lot of combustibles that you're inhaling. So really one of the best ways to consume flour is through glass. Glass can handle a very high temperature, and it really is the cleanest tasting experience by far. It's also really easy to clean glass items so that all of the products and home goods you have for cannabis around your house are nice and neat and clean and ready for a great user experience where you're not tasting ash or other debris. And so my products were all designed around that. So I designed a line of glassware first. It was the first Jane West line, very petite. People kept calling it petite, but really the capacity of my bong was just about the same as the capacity of your lung space. And buying a bong that is larger than that isn't logical. In fact, a more petite bong allows you to get a denser hit of smoke, which is what most heavy users are going for. And so I designed a glassware line. I have the bong, a bubbler, which is another water filter device. Bongs and bubblers using water filtration cools the smoke before you inhale it, which is great, and also pulls out a lot more particulates from the smoke that you'd be inhaling. So I have 2 water pieces in my first line, and then 3 handheld pieces, a taster, which is like a small chillum, a small mini single serving pipe, which I love. I'm all about the chillums. I mean, more and more. And then also a steamroller. I love steamrollers. They allow for new users to really control the flow of smoke because there's a large carb on them. And then
So I don't know what a steamroller is.
a steamroller, it's kind of like, well, when you see them in like a store, when you see a steamroller, this is a funny pickle pipe my kids bought. Okay, when you see a steamroller in a store, it looks a little bit like this. It's just a tube.
So let's take a pickle, yeah.
But
okay.
because there's a big carb at the end, you can see all the smoke and then release the carb at the right time to inhale. As opposed to a closed.
You control dose by being able to visually see what's happening.
Exactly.
Oh, cool.
And with like a regular
I love
pipe,
how much I learn every day.
with a regular pipe that doesn't have a carb, your only option is to keep pulling. And so you're pulling, pretty hot smoke, burning. You're lighting something in fire in front of your face and inhaling it. So you want to just give it a second to cool. So my steamroller looks like this. Has little feet, so it sits up, and then the bowl is very triangular, so that you can actually smoke mostly green. And what I mean by that is, if you buy your flower, you bring it home, you really should be doing some type of grinding process to release the terpenes, and then you load the bowl with it, and you can see the green, right? Well, as soon as you char part of it to consume it, you should not smoke that part again. That is charred. And so the triangular bowl allows for you to do that more. And really get the most out of every bowl. So that was my first glassware line. But ultimately, the contracts I entered into around it were not behooving of my company. And I really needed to move forward with things that I designed and owned all the designs for. My goal with the first line too was to have it always look clean. And so that's why we chose this mint. And then also cloud white and a cobalt blue, so that no matter what, when you take a picture of my products, it looks clean. It can be really dirty on the inside, but it's opaque, and you can see it. And so, so my goal with the second glassware line was to definitely have it be transparent, because it is important for the customer and user to be able to see the smoke and how dense it is and consuming. And also be really affordable. My first line I entered into with the company as under a licensing deal, and they set the pricing just too high. And I want something that people can have in their home and buy for gifts and have it be at a right price point that's accessible. I also really wanted to create something familiar, that it fits into your household. It's seamlessly, but new. I wanted to be familiar, but also in the cannabis world, be new, oh, I've never seen anything quite like that, right? While also, again, always having attention to form and function and detail of the actual user experience of consuming. So one of the first things I wanted to create was an ashtray. So the new line is called the 20s collection, and it's to celebrate the 2020s as the decade of cannabis acceptance. We're only here in 2023. We have 7 more years to go. And I think that a lot will change. Hopefully, we definitely need another wave of activists out there fighting for people's rights to grow this plant. But either way, whether it's big business or everyday people, the world's relationship with cannabis is going to be drastically different by the end of this decade. So this glassware line is called the 20s collection, and it's inspired by some of these pieces from around my home. There's not any textured glassware out there, and it's something that's so familiar in the American home. I started with designing an ashtray. The ashtray is designed so that lighters and joints don't fall into the bottom of it, and also the edge is perfectly flat and has grooves set in it to be able to hold a joint just perfectly, because joints should rest on their side. horizontal when you're not consuming them, so that you don't canoe them and burn the flower if it's at an angle. And so this is the first design was the ashtray, which I just love. I picture it in social use lounges, which finally are starting to gain traction in certain states. And then second, there's a hand pipe that goes with the products. It has a carb like we just talked about, so you can control the flow of smoke. And it also like feels really like a rocks glass in your hand, like that feeling of like this serving. It has a nice thick rim, so you can, if you choose to use concentrates or put a torch to it, you'll be protected. And yeah, and then just like in the steamroller, you'll see like you can see and control the flow of smoke, which is just important for customers to be able to do, especially new users. And then finally, the last piece is the water pipe. And so this is designed specifically to be able to have a banger put on it. Do you know what a banger is?
I don't.
Okay, so
I'm from Minnesota, and they're just legalizing, as I mentioned. So my familiarity with the beloved marijuana plant is from college years, which is many, many years ago.
got it.
And so we had nothing of this nature.
Yes. So many bongs, because most bongs are designed just using Chinese scientific glassware, like a tube and a beaker, literally. The pull, which is what you call this part that goes into it, goes in at a 45-degree angle. So it fits inside of the beaker triangle because that's the shape they were trying to work with. However, and then you tip it back to use it. However, I wanted my new water pieces to have a vertical insert so that they go in straight from the top. It makes it a lot easier to use the product. It means it doesn't require the customer to pick up the bong and tilt it towards them. It can just be resting on a table. And then these also can be used with bangers, which customers that like to use concentrates, they use a device that comes out at an angle. And so you need to be able to have the pull be going perfectly vertical through the glass piece. So this is the water, but it can still be used just like a bong, and even better because you'll be able to really control the amount of smoke that you're inhaling. So those are the first three pieces of my 20s collection line, and they'll be available starting in Q4 this year. I just closed my first distribution deal for it, so I know that the orders will be moving forward. And they'll be landing ideally this year. I don't know if for sure they'll be landing, but we're definitely placing our POs now. And I'm really excited about that. Some of the other things I've designed, I have a dugout line called the Travel Collection. And that is really just like, I know you definitely know dugouts. You've probably seen them like a wooden dugout with a little thing that looks like a lighter. Okay, this is my dugout. And you fill it here. It's the same. Yes, it's wrapped in stainless steel. It's the same size and shape as an iPhone, so it like fits more seamlessly into your life. It comes with a little pick to clean out the pipe, and then there's also a second chamber at the bottom, so you can carry two varietals on you. As I've expanded my flower offerings nationwide, like partnered with locally owned growers who I want to represent the Jane West brand, everything they sell is in day and night. And so most of my products I try to be able to offer so that my customers and I can travel with two varietals on me at any time. Because people just, cannabis is something that I believe there's just like so much, like part of the joy of cannabis is the variety, is the different experiences and the different varietals. I don't know anyone who like just smokes one thing all the time. And so like I just showed you the one we designed for men. This is the compact for women. And it's also a dugout and has the pipe and your lighter fits inside. And again, there's a container for day and night flower so that you can keep track of what you're consuming and that you have these different varietals on you, and everything you need, including your lighter, is right here in your hand in your purse and fits seamlessly into your life and looks like everything else you own. It isn't like tie-dyed or wooden. And so that was the travel collection.
So, and I want to use that, Jane, to segue into your website is janewest.com, right?
Yes, correct.
Yeah, because I'm looking at this beautiful product, but the listeners
Yes.
can't see it right now. But if you go to janewest.com, you'll be able to see all of these beautiful, elegant products, and you're going to want them all. And where else can we find you on social media, Jane?
Well, I'm not one for editing myself, and I will not accept the censorship that is being applied to cannabis companies anymore. So with this last round of Instagram and Facebook shutting down our accounts, we're really like pulled off social media. It's just not friendly to cannabis companies. And so everything can be found at janewest.com. And all the blog posts, there's design details where we kind of dove back into some of our industrial designs to like explain the products. There's videos of me using all the products I have designed and explaining how to use them. And those can be applied to all products. It's obviously I'm using my bong, but it is informative to people new and returning to cannabis. So all of that stuff can be found on janewest.com with direct links to our YouTube page that also has all those videos and content. There's also a whole set of videos that I did describing how to use the 5 most popular vaporizers, which is a great way to consume without actually, inhaling a lot of cannabis. The modern vaporizers, they run a customer between like $200 to $300, but it's definitely a worthwhile purchase. And so I explain how to use the 5 different most popular ones on the market because they are confusing. So we're just trying to control, our own. I just want to make sure we're giving everyone the best information. And when censorship starts to limit that, we just are using the platforms that will welcome us and host us.
Nice. Now, I'm doing everything in this conversation with you, Jane. I have a certain order that I usually follow, and I'm not following any of it. So I want to know, because I think from talking with you and listening to your story, I think I have an idea of why I would think you're bodacious. But what is it about you that you think is bodacious?
Oh, I was thinking about this because I saw it in the I think just, you should question. I don't know if this is bodacious, but just keep questioning everything. Like all along this journey, I was told so many times that I cannot do this thing, whether it was the first events or Women Grow, or like after Women Grow, like, wait, you already did this. You can't just start making products. Like you should, question any limitations you're putting on yourself and, question the world as it's unfolding around you, especially in cannabis, because the more you make sure that the world is being built for you, the more you will create that world that you want. And all of this is happening right now. The products in Minnesota that you're allowed to access and who can access them and who can provide them, like these are critical questions that really will affect what the end of this decade looks like in Minnesota. And so I'm someone who does keep questioning everything. I question myself too. And that's something that I think could really behoove people, trying to make it in the cannabis space as well.
There you have it, everyone. Jane West, the Bodacian questioner of all, at janewest.com. Thank you for joining us today. It's been fascinating.
Thank you so much for having me. This is awesome.